The Dam released the studio album Not of This Earth, also known as I'm Alright Jack and the Beanstalk, on the Japanese label Toshiba Records in the fall of 1995. This lineup featured founding member, lead singer Dave Vanian, drummer Rat Scabies, along with guitarist Kris Dollimore, Alan Lee Shaw, and bassist Moose Harris. Rat Scabies had been trying to get the band to record some new material because he was tired of playing the same old songs. The original lineup managed to record a new song to sell during their final tour of the original lineup in the fall of 1991, Prokofiev, which he co-wrote with Brian James. The song was recorded a year earlier, and it featured Brian James improvising guitar riffs over the backing track of Iggy and the Stooges' song Gimme Danger, and were programmed onto Scabies' studio computer. The single's B-side featured a version of the song with vocals added by Dave Vanian. They sold the disc on their tour of the US in the fall of 1991. They were produced by Skitty's Cut, who was owned by a fan of the band, and he only wanted coffee money for his services. The songs were produced by an uncredited David M. Allen, who would go on to produce their next studio album. Guitarist Kris Dollimore and Rat Scabies worked on some music and demos in 1992. Scabies brought in Brian James to work with them over some new material, and they formed sort of a supergroup of punks. Dollimore was a member of the Godfathers, but Brian James grew bored of the project and left, so Scabies and Dollimore recruited Moose Harris, the former bassist for the New Model Army. The trio worked on new music and demos while trying to get Dave Vanian to join their group and restart the Dam, but he wasn't interested at the time. That was because Dave had his own band, the Phantom Chords, and he was trying to do his own thing. He was touring and was searching for a record label to release his band's first album. He also didn't like the songs that the trio were coming up with and felt that they weren't up to the Dam's standards. Scabies dismissed Moose and Dollimore and decided to work with Alan Lee Shaw at the behest of Brian James, who recommended him. The two worked out 10 songs that would later appear on the album. Alan Lee Shaw said in an interview with The Strange Brew that his friendship with founding member and fellow guitarist Brian James got him involved with the new Damned lineup. He also worked with drummer Rat Scabies on fleshing out some of the demo tracks that he was working on, and they both felt that they would be perfect for the new Damned album. Kris Dollimore and Moose Harris would return to work with Scabies and Shaw. The four of them would flesh out the new material and practice regularly. They decided to search for a new lead singer, but after a few rehearsals, they decided on Dave Vanian, who heard what they were working on and decided to rejoin them in this new version of The Damned. The new lineup of Scabies, Vanian, Shaw, Dollimore, and Harris made their debut in the fall of 1993. In November, they performed on BBC Radio and proceeded to tour the UK and North America for the next few weeks. During this tour, an A&R person from Toshiba Records approached the band and asked them to sign a contract to release a studio album due to their large following in the country. Rat Scabies, who acted as the band's manager, agreed to record the album, which would be later titled I'm Alright Jack and the Beanstalk. But due to the wordy title of the album and the executives fearing that it would get lost in the translation, they had them change the name. They decided on Shattered of All, but at the last minute, it was changed to Not of This Earth. The original name of the album came from an old British expression, and it was a variation of a title of the 1959 comedy that co-starred Peter Sellers. And it was a common phrase that was used by a friend of Rat Scabies who would say it around him occasionally. The album was recorded at the infamous Connie Plank Studios in Germany by David M. Allen in the early spring of 1995 after the completion of their European tour. The final mixing was completed back in the UK. The material that was recorded were the songs that Alan Lee Shaw and Rat Scabies co-wrote together. During the final mixing and post-production of the album, Glenn Matlock came in to re-record bass parts on two of the tracks that were Tailspin and never could believe when Moose Harris was unavailable to redo his parts. James Taylor of the James Taylor Quartet was brought in by the producer David M. Allen to add some synth, piano, and keyboards into the final production. During the recording of the album, David Vanian was going through a messy divorce and needed to make as much money as possible, so he tried to get the band together to go on the road. Scabies, however, wanted to wait until the album was released so they could go out and promote it, and perhaps make some huge money in future sales and perform in larger venues instead of the smaller ones that Vanian had planned. Dave decided to reform the Phantom Chords and hit the road. He was not pleased with the final recordings of Not of This Earth and tried to get the album not released. Vanian was dissatisfied with the vocal work and for not getting songwriting credits due to adding additional lyrics on some of the tracks. This lineup of the Damned played their final show on July 27, 1995, at the Cooperage in Plymouth, England. Not of This Earth was released a few months later by Toshiba Records on November 11, 1995, but with no band to promote the album, it just sat on the shelves with very little fanfare. This release contained a staple of 90s music CDs, a hidden track which features a remix version of Prokofiev with no Vanian vocals, sounds of a washing machine, and a voicemail message. The album was released a few months later in the UK on Marble Orchard Recordings as I Am Alright Jack and the Beanstalk. This CD is the best one because it features an interactive CD-ROM which allows the listener to navigate a maze, which features 2 music videos recorded for MTV Europe, a file of pictures, and other hidden goodies. In the summer of 1996, Scabies signed a deal with Cleopatra Records in the United States to release the new Damned album under the title Not of This Earth. He also allowed them to remix several songs which appear on the EP Testify, featuring an industrial goth remixes which gave a new life to the songs, and a single to promote the album called Shut It. This release, however, is just a plain CD which features no hidden tracks or enhanced CD-ROM features. While Scabies was shopping around Not of This Earth to music distributors, Captain Sensible and his band Punk Floyd backed Dave Vanian to create a new version of The Damned in early 1996. In a phone interview I did with him around this time, he called the album a bunch of duff songs that featured demo vocals of Dave and told me and tell others not to buy it or listen to it. Well, I bought the album when it was released, along with the single and EP back in 1996, and I enjoyed them. The songs have a certain charm to them, and I don't believe the claim that they were demo vocals. Vanian sings them like they're real takes. My only beef I have with the album is that it sounds too overproduced. The live versions that were featured on the CD Molten Lager, which was released a few years later, sound so much better. The only one who claimed that the vocals were demo takes is Dave Vanian. The rest of the band, who participated in the studio recordings, say otherwise. They agree that he was enthusiastic to take part in the studio recordings and liked them at the time. For years, the band, which was led by Vanian and Sensible, refused to acknowledge the existence of I'm Alright Jack and the Beanstalk as an official studio album. Now that Scabies is back in the band, hopefully they'll rectify this and include it back into its official catalog.